Ambassador Adeluseyi to make his presentation on migration, on the perspective of migration in Africa. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, my dear President, Dr. Laide from University of Ibadan. Greetings on behalf of the Board of Images to our participants and guests joining from all over the world. I also want to greet everybody coordinating the program from our engine room at St. Anne's Hall, University of Ibadan in Nigeria. I'll give a brief background before I go on to my topic today. I'll be speaking on the perspective on migration in Africa this afternoon. Please pardon my lapses in my pretense, according to Dr. Olaide, my pretense to be an academic. I want to especially welcome Dr. Shinyenkwa, who is joining us from Kampala, Uganda, and of course, Mrs. Adeshola, who is with us here in Nigeria, joining us, I suppose, from Ibadan. I also want to appreciate the presence of our very good friend, our coordinator for Eastern Africa, who is also joining us from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, this afternoon. You are all most welcome. Without much ado, I'll go straight to the address to address the issue at hand. Before I say anything, I'd like to remind us that the first case of coronavirus, COVID-19, was seen in the West African sub-region, precisely in Niamey, Niger Republic, on the 19th of March, 2020. Also, before I go further, I'd like to state a little on migration. That is, migration should not always be seen as those crossing the Sahara, quote and unquote, runaways at certain peril, or crossing the Mediterranean. No, migration is bigger than that. There's serious economic migration. There's also political migration. Migration like those getting permanent residency or citizenship still connotes migration as well. Migration in Africa is as old as history itself. These days, migration in our continent is mostly an issue that has to do with youths. They mostly migrate in search of greener pastures, which is not always the case. Sometimes they are fortunate, and sometimes, or most times, I'll say with the population or the statistics of those people dying, trying to cross by sea, by land, with their population, I'll say they are not always very successful. They do so at a great peril. I'll use Nigeria as my case study today because if I try to use Africa, it's a very big, the base will be too broad. So I'm going to limit myself to Nigeria, although from time to time I'll foray into the Niger Republic, which is the hub of land migration, and also Burkina Faso. I will use Nigeria, as I said, as my case study, and the impact differs from region to region and from country to country in Africa. That's why I'm limiting myself to Nigeria. The diaspora office in our presidency here in Nigeria gives an estimate of about 20 million Nigerians resident in Europe and the United States. This figure will continue to rise if what I'll later describe as the push factors are not addressed by the Nigerian government. In Nigeria, migration Generally, apart from those doing serious business, migration generally is due to extreme hardship and poverty at home. Migration is chiefly understood as a permanent or semi-permanent change of residence. By implication, migration may be defined as a form of relocation, diffusion, involving permanent moves to new locations. African youths migrate especially to global north for various reasons. As I said earlier, this paper will attempt to put into perspective, using Nigeria as a case study, to delve into reasons behind this push and pull process, the hazards and challenges that come with African migration to the Western world, developmental and contributions of African nationals in diaspora as a result of migration to the economy and growth of their nations. Migration, it has been established, remains critical to national progress. I'm sure a lot of people who are not used to the migration process will be surprised that migration remains critical to national progress, yes, and of course prosperity. For it comes with both economic gains and or losses to both source, the country of migration, and then destination countries like the global north. Factors responsible for migration. Here are push and pull factors that I mentioned earlier on that triggers migration will be examined. For the push factors, these include non-availability of work opportunities, insecurity, corruption, deep corruption, and weakened institutions. All these factors incubate poverty. On the other hand, pull factors abound at the destination which attracts migration. There's a common say that one man's meat is another man's poison. You discover that a lot of Nigerians, a lot of Africans migrate to the global north. But there's also intra-African migration, hardship in some African countries, leading their people to migrate to other countries. Very famous in Southern Africa is a lot of people migrating from that sub-region to the Republic of South Africa. In West Africa, migration mainly is to Nigeria. Nigeria controls about 60% of West African economy. And 40% of that economy, I can boldly say, resides in Lagos, Nigeria. So Lagos is a beehive of foreigners who are residing here. This is their own green pasture. That's about pull factors. They also include, these pull factors also include availability of work opportunities, like I said earlier, better pays, good jobs, conducive and viable educational facilities. I'll quickly cite Ghana as an example. Nigeria has over 30 universities, some of them very good, some not so good. But you still discover that a lot of Nigerians migrate to Ghana just for educational reasons. They finish their studies, some of them stay there, some of them come back. But you discover that these universities they go there to study are not necessarily the best. It was in Ghana I first heard that the university is managed by a managing director. The challenges and hazards of migration. About 10% of immigrants are legal. legal immigration has its own problems. Visa denial is number one. You pay to an embassy, invariably they deny you visa and no money is returned. Sharp practices by travel agents who are willing or always waiting to swindle unsuspecting immigrants is another factor. You give them money, they assure you everything will be ready, you are relaxed, only to be told that the office is no longer there, they've disappeared. A lot of hanky-pankies. After migrating, some immigrants face xenophobia and racism at their destinations. This is very common. I know South African government has been fighting a lot of battle to protect its image against the accusation of xenophobia. Police harassment and other forms of discomfort most times are also part of the hazards. It shows that Rome is not paved in gold. At times, the grass at home is greener than the grass yonder. Across the Sahel, immigrants suffer untold hardship. They are visited with hunger, lack of clean drinking water, diseases, lack of humane accommodation, and ill health. African Center for Strategic Studies, ACSS in Niger Republic, has reported that law enforcement agencies in the Sahel and Sahara are most culpable of abuse of immigrants. In the developed world, there's still perceived hostility to immigrants. They're seen as competitors and opponents. A lot of hazards. I mean, if I want to go into the challenges, they are so numerous and that will eat up all my time. So I'll leave that. There are health challenges, there's accommodation, people who migrate, get stopped, wants to come back, they can't come back, everywhere is congested, especially in this time of COVID. Impact of COVID-19 on immigrants. The economic crisis induced by the pandemic is very glaring. The rate of its spread, along with its high fatality rates, lack of sufficient medical preparedness, forced countries around the world to quickly shut their borders. I would describe that as very sharp lockdown because they didn't waste time at all before they are swamped by coronavirus-bearing immigrants. This, along with social distancing, forced businesses to close shops. The world has never experienced this before. Even the Bourbon scourge and the Spanish flu were not as, maybe because the world population was smaller then, one will give it to that. The world has never experienced this kind of thing before. It's led or leading into 3% shrink in world economy. In 2020, International Monetary IMF forecast. The economic crisis that is ravaging the world could continue longer, deeper than forecast estimates. Immigrant labor force, where needed, has been devastatingly low and non-existent. Conclusions and recommendations. Immigrants have been hardest hit by COVID-19. There's huge unemployment, lesser wages, abuses. Most times while international agencies want to assist, the extent of needs are not clear. How much money do they need? How much medical support do they need? All sorts of things, mainly medical economic, causing a gap in supply of the demand. Because when you don't know what they need, you don't know what to supply. This was the assessment, for instance, by Rich Initiative in Agadez in Niger Republic, a key route of migration across the Sahara. I recommend that in the case of Nigeria, the federal government should initiate viable development policies that will raise the standard of living. Platforms should be established to increase accessibility, crucial information for Nigerians in diaspora. The diaspora constitutes mainly skilled, semi-skilled, and highly professionals. They will willingly relish the idea of engaging in credible opportunities of investment with guaranteed returns of their investment. The Nigerian government also should look at a viable policy framework that will harness remittances into generating capital for productive investment. In the blighting light of COVID-19, government will do well to consider short, medium, and long-term interventions to support stranded immigrants, the remittance of infrastructure, loss of subsistence income for families back home, access to health, housing, education, and jobs for migrant workers in those and transit countries. Thank you very much for your attention.